Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu. Each of us is born into this world, and the world is new to us. It's a phenomenon that has just occurred for us. But this same phenomenon of birth has been going on and on and on since the time of the creation. Allah created Adam and Eve, and then Adam and Eve had, according to certain legends, 21 sets of twins. And these twins then paired off into men and women and spread out over the world. They populated the world slowly. They went into different places and began to reproduce. They separated themselves from their brethren, and they developed in different ways. At the time prior to Adam, the elements all had a certain arrogance to them: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Each of them had a certain pride and a certain narcissism wherein they thought they were each the most important of things. Allah, through the Nur, calmed the pride of the elements and mollified them, made them peaceful towards each other. And then Allah was able to combine them to form the creation. This enmity within the elements was never entirely subdued. They were put together and they formed a cooperation to allow the body that holds the soul to exist, and man was created in that way. But as man came to the world, and as they spread out throughout the world, and as they developed in different ways, enmity began to occur between the different settlements of people in the world. They began to have different languages, different ways of communicating. They began to have different customs, different ways of carrying on. They began to have different religions, different ways of looking at things, different belief systems. Some became city dwellers, some became jungle dwellers, some became nomads, some had permanent residences. But every time they would run into someone other than themselves or their tribe who was doing something different than the way they were doing, there would be a clash. And in this clash, there was often killing and murder and much grief. Man kept forgetting the fact that they were created by God. Man kept forgetting that they all came from one mother and father. Man kept forgetting that there was a unity among all men and that we're all made from the same elements. We're all created in the same way. And what happened is man had different colors, different languages, different nationalities, different religions, and man began to look at the differences as if they had more weight than the things that were the same about men. Men began to blame other men for their problems. Man began to blame other men for their difficulties and their sorrows. Man didn't have the ability to look at the rest of humanity and see himself in the rest of humanity. He saw himself as a portion of humanity that was somehow intrinsically different than the other portions of humanity. As this occurred, God, through Gabriel and the agency of prophets, came into the world to indicate to men that there was a unity among them and that there existed one God and one God alone. And this God created everyone, and everyone was beholden to this one God. And all of the separations that man was seeing were not real. They were created through man's mind and through man's desire and through man's needs. Even with the prophets coming and explaining all this to man, it was difficult for man to absorb these concepts and to hold on to them as truth. Some believed, some didn't believe, some reacted violently, some even tried to kill the ones who brought the messages. Now, if we follow history, we see a constant repetition of these same characteristics happening among men throughout the world. And if you look at the world today, you will see that these same characteristics exist and haven't ceased. We can get specific. It might offend some, but in specificity, you have in Myanmar, which was Burma, you have Buddhists who are ostracizing people of other religions, even killing them. In China, you have the Chinese having great difficulty with some of the minorities within their system, for instance, the Uyghurs, and they separate them and they put them within camps and they try to bring them around to believing in their way. In the Middle East, you have the long-standing Shia-Sunni conflict, which is still erupting in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, and still causing tremendous tension, conflict, war, and death among people because of the attempt to dominate according to their own belief system. In Rwanda, just a few years ago, there was a tribal war where hundreds of thousands of people were killed in hand-to-hand combat. In Russia, Russia sees things not by way of religion, but by way of nationality. And so the Russian nation becomes that which must be defended and made larger. And now you have this incredible war with Ukraine that's killing thousands of people and destroying an entire nation, bombing them to the point of oblivion, where it's going to take hundreds of billions of dollars to restore what's been destroyed. This story of hatred among men is continual. And it seems that every generation starts over again with new hatreds that we haven't seen before. In 1945, it was the end of World War II. In 1920 or 21 or so, it was the end of World War I. Each time the world said this was going to be the end of conflict, and each time within 20 years, conflicts arose again. To have a point of view that includes all of humanity, that includes every religion, that includes every person of every color and of every nationality, and proclaims they are one, is rare. Sufism makes this proclamation. Sufism attempts to explain to the world that all men are one and that God is one. But there are certain things that stop men from believing this, even though it is the truth. And that is arrogance, karma, and maya. The arrogance of the mind, the arrogance of desire, the arrogance of the self wants to proclaim the self and that which the self adheres to as the only way. In trying to indicate that there is but one way, man essentially is limiting the nature of Allah. Is man saying that God can just be worshipped in one way? Is man saying that different languages have to accustom themselves to other languages in order to be able to worship appropriately? There are many languages in the world, and yet there is still one God. There are many names for God in the world. Each language has their own name, but yet there is still one God. There is a unity in existence that, whether you believe in that unity or don't believe in that unity, is the truth of the way man exists. Constantly, prophets were being sent to bring this into focus for people. And constantly, they did some good, and then it faded. And then more prophets had to be sent, and more prophets had to be sent, and more prophets had to be sent to repeat the same message that God is one, God is unity, man is in unity, and when man sees God's, when man understands man's unity, man can become closer to God. Now, we as humanity have been sent to earth for a specific reason. The specific reason is to come to know our Lord, and through coming to know that, to understand birth, to understand death, to understand the time before birth, and to understand the time after death. But man has lost his understanding of the reason for existence. And now man has taken on what he can see in this world as the reason for existence. So man concludes, I see, I need, I want, I will do what is necessary to obtain. And this is arrogance, karma, and maya. This is the illusion and delusion that has taken man from his true purpose and brought him to the side of Satan, who is trying to convince man to live within the parameters of illusion, and that his life should be filled with illusion, and his satisfaction in this world will come from illusion. The prophets came to tell us that the true treasure for man, the true satisfaction for man, the true peace for man is not to be found within the world. It is to be found within God. Now, the qualities of God are the true treasure of man. Yet, man has replaced that treasure with gold, women, real estate, fame, and power in this world. In order for us to begin to understand truth, in order for us to begin to straighten out our own lives, we have to shift our allegiance. We have to shift our allegiance from the world to God. And anything that takes us away from our belief system in God is taking us away from truth. The holy men, the men who have deep wisdom, are constantly conscious of God. And in being constantly conscious of God, they have been able to do this because they have acquired the qualities of God, and these qualities are constantly operating within them. So a man who is conscious of God is conscious of peace. He's conscious of patience. He's conscious of compassion. He's conscious of mercy. He's conscious of these qualities. Now, we can't pick and choose these qualities. We can't say, today we're going to be this and tomorrow we're going to be that, or I just want peace, or I just want patience, or I just want some specific thing that will satisfy and mollify and bring me into a state that is conducive to my happiness. In order for us to find that state that is conducive to our happiness, we have to begin to understand the nature of God. And to understand that nature, we have to focus on that nature. Now, we have a left side and we have a right side. The left side deals with the world and deals with our body. The right side deals with God. We have to learn that we can deal with our body, the needs of our body, the needs of ourself, and at the same time be constantly conscious of our Creator and be constantly conscious of our place in creation and the unity of creation, and constantly conscious of the fact of what is the reason for our being. You know, we all say we are a body that has a soul. In truth, we are a soul that has a body. And when we can make that transition, we have begun to understand better our place in existence. The ones who think they are bodies are constantly trying to embellish the left side. The ones who think they are souls understand that the truth is going to come out to shifting the consciousness from the body to the soul and to the soul's connection to that which is our Creator. Now, we can either do that or we can try to absorb the world. when Adam and Eve were thrown out of paradise, Satan went with them. And Satan has been an enemy of man ever since the beginning of time. And it is Satan's duty, it is Satan's work to lead men away from God into the world, into the torpor of illusion, into arrogance, into karma, into thinking that the intellect can understand everything, that the mind actually can know things that need to be known. The mind is incapable of understanding beyond philosophy. The mind is incapable of understanding Allah's qualities and the true nature of God. So the mind begins to construct ideas that are the opposite of truth. And it is something that happens constantly. And we see it historically constantly. For instance, Moses went on to Mount Sinai, and everyone was aware of the fact, or the people around him at that time were aware of the fact that he was on Mount Sinai to commune with God, to bring back rules and regulations for the people on how to live. And while they knew that he was there with the one God, what did they do? They built a golden calf to worship. They reverted to their worldly understanding of things and the fact they thought that worldly things could accomplish things for them. They left truth, even though truth was with them and really close to them. And this happens constantly in the world as man runs into difficulties, as man runs into sorrows, as man runs into tribulations. His belief system alters and he begins to deny God because God didn't give him what he wanted. Man didn't have the patience to allow God to provide for him in God's time. So what does man do? He begins to look to the world for the answers. He begins to look to the world for the solutions to his problems. And this happens on an individual level, and it happens on a nation level. Now, we are trying to remove ourselves from entanglements within the world and work on our own self. So we are trying to bring about a peaceful self, an ability to walk through this world without harming anyone else, an ability to walk through this world to be in union with everyone else and to be a hand that is outstretched to help when the opportunity arises. We are trying to understand the nature of the Creator and to do in unison with the Creator what the Creator does. The Creator gives, the Creator helps, the Creator protects, the Creator sustains, the Creator has no selfishness. The Creator has no needs. Now, man has needs, and man has family. The Creator has no family. So for man, some say it's more difficult to do what he's been put here to do than it is for Allah or God to do what he's doing, because God doesn't have the attachment man has. So we know we have to overcome these attachments in order to be able to do what actually needs to be done. We need to be able to understand the difficulties that we have and move forward with those difficulties, although we may at times find them overwhelming. We need to think less of ourselves and expand our consciousness to include the rest of humanity. We have to feel not just our hunger, but the hunger of everyone else. We have to feel not just our needs, but the needs of everyone else. And when we can enter into that state of being, a great change occurs within us. And how does that change occur? What is it that we have to do in order for that change to occur? We have to understand that Allah gives us each breath. And as we breathe, we are in debt to our Creator, because without those constant breaths, we would not be sustained. But He does continue to sustain us, and He sustains us with each breath that He gives us. So with each breath that we are given, the Sufis say, we have to worship our Creator. So we should never lose consciousness of our Creator. We should never lose our awareness of our Creator. Everything that we look at should remind us of our Creator. When you look at a flower and you smell the fragrance of the flower, who created the flower? Who created the fragrance within the flower? And doesn't that fragrance beckon you? Beckon you towards what? Beckons you towards your Creator. When you see an animal, who created that animal? Who gave that animal its sustenance? So what should that animal remind you of? It should remind you of your Creator and the fact that so much is going on all around us, constantly, that is being taken care of and watched over by the Creator. Yet we walk through life not being conscious of Him every moment. When we see an apple tree, we should be reminded of the Creator. When we see the wide variety of fruits that occur in different trees, we should be reminded of the great artistry of the Creator. Who is a greater artist than the Creator? Who can produce all of the different varieties of things that are in this world other than the Creator? Our imagination could never produce an elephant, a lion, a tiger, a bear, a hippopotamus, and a caterpillar. But His artistry produces this and so much more. How many thousands of different insects are there? How many thousands of different plants are there? How many thousands of different grasses are there? How many hundreds of different temperature zones are there within the world? How much variety exists within the world? And who was the one who created all this variety? Where did all this variety come from? Every time we see any of these things, we should be reminded of our Creator. A great American poet called Walt Whitman wrote a book he titled Blade of Grass. And what he was saying essentially is that each blade of grass should be reminding you of the Creator. So if we can create within us a consciousness that is constantly understanding the fact that everything we see is from our Creator, by our Creator, and created in order to assist us in the purpose that we were sent here for, which is to come to know our Creator, we will enter into a consciousness that comes closer to the consciousness that we're supposed to be in. We need to develop wisdom. And through wisdom, we will find truth. Truth is God. Truth is reality. And how do we develop this wisdom? How do we come to that point in our existence where we come to be wise? Why are there wise men and why are there dolts? Why are there wise men and why are there evil men? Well, the prophets came and they explained evil, they explained good, they explained halal, they explained haram, they explained what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. We've had the framework laid out for us. We've had the prophets and the ketubs come and tell us about the various qualities of Allah. And the point that the ketubs make to us, and they reiterate it over and over and over, is for man to become true man, man must take on the qualities of his Creator. And in taking on the qualities of his Creator, his consciousness moves in the direction of wisdom and of understanding the nature of his Creator. And as we do that, and as we act with God's qualities, we begin to have a point of view that's called wisdom. The ketubs come from the light. Allah sent them not as a reincarnation, but as a gift to humanity from the light, with the point of view of the light. In other words, with the point of view of Allah, with the point of view of God, not with the point of view of self-motive, of worldly gain, of worldly needs, of illusion. It's a different point of view. It's a point of view that has removed the self from the consideration and sees things as a unified whole. So it no longer just sees I, it sees we. And when we see we as opposed to I in everything that we do, we see things in a unified way. And it's through that unity that we will find truth. It's through seeing the sameness in each man that we begin to understand truth. But instead of seeing the sameness, so much of the world is caught in color, in race, in religion, in nationality, in language, in differences, and an insistence on differences, because man cannot break through the arrogance, the karma, and the maya of the mind. It's like this big rock of a mountain that stands in front of us that we can't break through. We all need chisels and hammers to begin to break away this rock of the mind and this rock of desire. Desire is intrinsically connected to the self. What is it that we desire when we desire things? We desire to aggrandize ourselves. We desire to accumulate for ourselves. We desire to get more. When can our desires shift so that we desire to gain compassion? We desire to gain mercy. We desire to gain love. We desire to help our fellow man. We desire the things that would make life better for all of humanity. If we look at the world, this seems like an impossible task. If we look at all the conflicts in every different section of the world, this would seem like an impossible task. But that's because we don't see with God's eyes and we don't see with God's understanding. God says kum, and it is. God can do anything. And we have to develop the faith, certitude, and determination that that is in fact so. And if you can change yourself, and you can change yourself from that being that is totally concerned with the self to a being that is concerned with the relationship with God, understanding God, and understanding the unity of all mankind, the world will begin to change. There are so many stories about what happens to a community when people change. It is said in the Quran, our leaders are a reflection of our own nature. So if our own nature begins to change, our leaders will begin to change. And as our leaders become unified, as our leaders preach unity, as our leaders understand unity, as our leaders give up self-motive, the world will begin to change. But it starts with one person at a time. And Sufism is a grassroots movement. It starts with the people in this world that will listen. Whoever will listen are the ones who are going to start this movement. And then if enough listen, there will be an impetus and an ongoing traction will be developed to take things in the direction of truth. So we, each of us, have to pray for this to happen within ourselves and within the rest of humanity. But the first thing we need to do is stop pointing fingers at other people. Stop pointing fingers at other institutions. Stop pointing fingers of blame everywhere around us. We should just be looking at ourselves and turning ourselves into insan kamil, turning ourselves into true men. Give up our prejudices, give up our dislikes, give up that which stops us from being unified with others. If we can do that, Allah may save all of humanity for us. Understand, He is capable of everything. He is beyond our imagination. He has no limits. He was before and He is after. There is no quantifying Him. And what makes Him move? His love for humanity. And what is it that He loves in humanity? Man's ability to become godlike and be able to interface with Him and be able to unify with Him. Man is inside God and God is inside man. And when that begins to be recognized, then all of humanity will be able to go to the place beyond religion, beyond sects, beyond differences, into the unity where all exists as one and everyone understands their sameness with each other and the unity of existence. So we pray to Allah, protect us, guide us, make us understand unity, bring about patience in our beings, bring about mercy in our beings, bring about love in our beings, bring about truth in our beings. Take us to that place of insan kamil, where man is within God and recognizes that fact. May that happen for each and every one of us. Ameen, Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.